ladies and gentlemen. Today is the day that the leader of a terrorist organization said that he wants a global jihad against the United States and against Israel and against Jews all over the world. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about what is the more wide-scale conflict that could erupt from what's going on in Israel and in Palestine. And we're going to get into it right here with this story from the New York Post. New York Police Department orders all cops to report in uniform after ex-Hamas chief calls for global protests. Oh, you love to see the lies. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to stop us right there because protest is not what jihad means. Jihad means struggle. That is basically, that's the definition of what that means. That is the translation from Arabic to English. It means struggle. Based on what we all just saw in Israel, I can tell you there's a reason why they're having all of their cops report in uniform, okay? They're not afraid of protests, okay? The Los Angeles Police Department is doing the same thing. Cities all over this country are doing that exact same thing, not because they're afraid of protests. They are afraid of what exactly just happened in Israel happening here in the United States, which in reality is what that man called for, okay? The leader of Hamas called for a jihad against the United States and against Israel and Jews all over the world. He does not mean protests. He does not mean protests. How do you protest Jews? Okay? You don't do that. He's saying to do exactly what happened in Israel all over the world to Jews everywhere and to Israel and the United States. That's exactly what he's saying, okay? And I want to get into this story, so let's read. The New York Police Department has ordered all cops to report in uniform starting Friday in anticipation of potential unrest stemming from a call by the former leader of Hamas to stage global demonstrations in support of Palestinians, the Post has learned. All uniformed members of the service in every rank will perform duty in the uniform of the day and be prepared for deployment, read a Wednesday night memo sent to NYPD members. Cops will not be granted excusals. Goodness, that's a word. Cops will not be granted excusals or shift changes, and the order will remain in effect until further notice, according to the memo. The directive was issued after Khaled Mashal, who served as chief of Hamas from 2004 to 2017, called on the Islamic world to stage protests on Friday. We already went over that. That is not what he called for. He called for a global jihad, which, as we can see from what they did in Israel, they called that a jihad as well. So let's be realistic about what's going on here. And let's get rid of the lies in the media. Let's see past the lies in the media and let's see the reality of what's happening in front of us, okay? The New York Police Department, the NYPD, is also beefing up security at all of its 77 police precincts, assigned additional cops to monitor entryways and parking areas at the station houses, according to the internal memo. The directive was issued by Khaled Mashal, who served as chief of Hamas. We already read into that. Let's go. Worst attack on Israel in 50 years. How we got here. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. I've already got deep into that in my last video. This is the important information, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, our southern border is so Charmin soft, okay? We have captured about 100 people at the border who were on a terrorist watch list, okay? Now, Border Patrol, they haven't exactly been doing their best, okay? That is how many they've caught. I'm not really afraid of how many they've caught. You shouldn't be afraid of how many they've caught. You should be afraid of how many of them got away, okay? because what's his face? Mashal guy? Yeah, Khalid Mashal. When he calls for a global jihad, okay, he's not talking to American citizens. He's not. All of these dinguses right here in this video that are protesting Israel, those are going to be the first people that die. Okay? He's not talking to these people. He's talking to people who have crossed the southern border, who are in the United States, and who have the capability to actually commit attacks against the United States and against the American citizens. Okay? You must understand that. He's not talking to American citizens. He's not. He's not. That's the reality of this situation. Let's look this in the face and let's embrace reality and stop living in our Americanized, Charmin soft world that we like to live in. Okay? This man just called for a direct attack against the United States. That's what he did. Now, what I'm saying is that this man is talking directly to the Muslims who are in the United States. Okay? That's who he's talking to. And mainly the people who have crossed the southern border, who have the capability of actually committing attacks against the United States heavily. Okay? However, that does not mean that certain people within the United States could not present a danger to you. Let me explain this. I want to share this video with you. It's very short. I'll just share a short bit of it. And this is at the University of Washington. From Benny Johnson, student organizations at the University of Washington host pro-Hamas rally on campus. I want you to listen specifically to what they're saying. Okay. Actually, let me make sure that this is ready to go. Okay. Perfect. All right. Palestine is our demand. No peace on stolen land. No peace on stolen land. Palestine is our demand. Palestine is our demand. No peace on stolen land. No peace on stolen land. There is only one solution. There is only one solution. Intifada revolution. Okay, so that's all you need to hear of that filth. So in case you couldn't quite tell what they were saying, what they're saying is goodness gracious, what they're saying is it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that people would really be this way, that you would have American citizens after what happened in 9/11, and maybe these people are not old enough to remember that. I'm not even old enough to remember that, but it's insane that people would actively be supporting legitimate terrorist organizations and what they did against Israel. It's absolutely insane. Guys, what they're saying is they want an intifada revolution. That's what they're saying. There is only one solution, intifada revolution. That's what they're saying. And then before that, they said no peace on stolen land. They're calling outright for a revolution. What does a revolution look like? What does it look like? Well, considering what we all just saw in Israel, we know that they all saw it, okay? Everyone saw it. They don't care. That's what they want. They just outright said it. They outright said they want a revolution. Okay? And they will do it by any means necessary. Another rallying cry, I guess you can say, for lack of a better term here, is that these far left crazies will say is from the river to the sea, meaning that they want to take back all land from Israel. And they want to, let's just say, genocide everyone that is there. Okay, all the Jews that are there. That is how deep the hatred goes from Muslims toward Jews. Okay, now, I'm not going to sit here and say that some Jews may not feel the same way, but Israel has not threatened to wipe Iran off the map like Iran threatened to do to Israel. Okay? Yes, that is a legitimate thing that Iran did. They said, our goal is to wipe Israel off the map. Yeah, that's a thing that they actually said, meaning they would kill everyone that's there. Yeah. So, speaking of global conflict, I want to get into more of the widespread danger that could come from this conflict in Israel and in Palestine. And it starts, oh gosh, it starts with this dingus, a Mr. Lindsey Graham. I have a short video I'd like to show you guys. And yes, this is a Republican who is coming out basically saying that we need a preemptive strike against Iran. Listen to this foolishness.
What I would do is I would bomb Iran's oil infrastructure. The money financing terrorism comes from Iran. It's time for this terrorist state to pay a price for financing and supporting all this chaos. Yes, if you're the Iranians, if it were up to me, this war escalates, I'm coming after you.
I think this is what I'm trying to clarify here, because I'm wondering
us
if
and Israel, us and Israel.
Us, the United States and
Israel.
Israel.
I want to be crystal clear.
The United. Let me just understand you. Just to be clear, you're saying that you would want the United States and Israel to bomb Iran, even in the absence of direct evidence of their involvement in this attack.
Yeah. So if there's an escalation, Abby, if there's people's throats being cut on.
There you go. There you have it. There you have it. This man just called for a preemptive strike against one of the most powerful militaries in the Middle East, despite the lack of evidence that they were even involved in this. Okay? Now, the working theory is that Iran was pretty much involved. Okay? That's the working theory. But we have not seen the direct evidence of that. And you have a United States politician irresponsibly going on live television and saying that we need a preemptive strike against a nation that we don't know what they have. Let's be honest, okay? Russia, who has been allied with Iran in the past, very well could have come in and said, hey, man, here's some nuclear weapons. And we know you've been trying to build some nuclear weapons for a while because you hate Israel. And Israel has been given nuclear weapons by the United States. Here's some nuclear weapons of your own. We have no idea if they have that capability. And that's what this dingus comes on CNN and says, asking for a preemptive strike against Iran. Ultimately, guys, our military is looking as if it's going to be spread very, very thin. Okay? And we can tell that even more from this. From Timcast. Not sure why that is popping up. I do apologize, guys. Okay, thank you. From Timcast, China attempting to draw U.S. into 4 separate wars with terrorist group. Expert claims CCP may have played a role in the recent Hamas attack against Israel, noting that China formed a strategic alliance with Palestine months before the assault. The world is still reeling from grotesque images and videos coming from Israel where members of the Islamist militant group Hamas recently unleashed an attack that resulted in the deaths of more than 900 Israelis. There remains widespread speculation as to whether other organizations or governments played a role in the facilitation of the operation. However, one possibility under consideration is that the Hamas attack is part of a widespread effort by China to catastrophically weaken the United States by drawing America into multiple simultaneous conflicts. Chinese Communist Party officials are planning a major war against the U.S., according to investigative reporter and East Asia expert Joshua Phillip, as he stated in a recent video. The CCP is planning to draw the U.S. into 4 separate conflicts, and they believe at least one of these needs to be a terrorist organization. It is possible that Hamas could be that group. The most important piece connecting China to Hamas, Philip said, is that in June of this year, CCP leader Xi Jinping personally met with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and announced the establishment of a China-Palestine strategic partnership. China hosted the meeting as part of its push to expand its influence in the Middle East. The visit, during which Xi said China and Palestine were good friends and good partners, was Abbas' 5th to China. Following Hamas' recent attack against Israel, China called for a ceasefire, and its foreign ministry said the fundamental way out of the conflict lies in implementing the two-state solution and establishing the independent state of Palestine. The overall strategy behind splitting U.S. attention between multiple conflicts, as Philip explained, is to weaponize America's free and open society against it, as outlined in a speech given by Xi's top advisor, Jin Rong. Of course, we could have other evil tactics such as furthering the chaos of the world, but the problem with the United States is that it is truly diverse. Among Western countries, the U.S. enjoys the highest degree of democracy. Of course, diversity has one advantage. The people have freedom, such as freedom of speech, but it comes with disadvantages too. It's very difficult for people to come to a consensus. The best scenario for the U.S. is that it has a very clear external enemy. If there are 2 enemies, the United States will lose its focus. This was the situation before World War II. There were 2 enemies, one Nazi Germany and the other the Red Scare, the Soviet Union, which that's not entirely true, but okay. Because of that, the U.S. It's true, but it's, we were also focused on Japan at the time, and we were able to handle two enemies at the same time. I digress. I digress. Let's just say this is not the 1940s, okay? Let's just say that. Because of that, the U.S. started fighting internally even before the war began. Now, if there were 3 external enemies for the U.S., you could see how that would be a mess, let alone 4. So China's strategic goal is to make sure that the U.S. has 4 enemies, and one of them must be a terrorist group. Russia is like one, but it's not enough. During an interview with Timcast News, Phillips said he believes that the CCP was involved in the Hamas attack as part of a wider effort to draw the U.S. into another war. I think the CCP was one of the main forces, Iran definitely, and probably North Korea as well, he explained. Why would they do it? The agenda. Iran has denied involvement in the attack, though intelligence experts suggest Iran is lying, noting that it is the world's top state sponsor of terrorism, which it executes through proxies to maintain plausible deniability. Other reporting has shown that North Korean arms have been found in the inventory of weapons Hamas fired on Israelis, a claim verified by unnamed explosive ordnance disposal specialists who spoke with Timcast News. Despite the perception that North Korea's military is largely irrelevant, Pyongyang has been one of the world's leading arms exporters in the weeks prior to Hamas attack. North Korea sold weapons to several Middle Eastern countries, including Iran, Syria, Egypt, and Qatar. Philip continued, if Hamas wanted to overthrow Israel, they wouldn't do it like this. You don't grab a bunch of hostages and run back to your house if you don't want to have a hostage situation. They wanted to lure Israel into this. The question is, why did they want to lure them into it? I think it's because they're trying to spark a global terror threat. Again, I think they want all the proxy forces of Hamas, of Hezbollah, and all the far-left groups tied into the global terror movement to see the imagery of this. And they're going to link it with Israel and possibly the United States, even Europe, and they're going to start launching terrorist attacks again. Philip explained that it all plays into the CCP's 4 wars agenda because China needs the U.S. so committed to multiple global military interventions that it will be unable to intervene when China moves to retake Taiwan. If they invade Taiwan, they can't take the brunt of the U.S. reaction. He said they need America focused on Russia. They need America focused on terror threats. They need America focused on the drug cartels or something in Latin America. 3 days after the attack, Hamas called for global jihad, telling Muslims around the world to target Jewish people and their supporters on Friday, October 13th. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So, the reality is that you have 4 fronts already coming to fruition. You have the front between Ukraine and Russia that, of course, we have been heavily involved in. Now, there's a question right now of whether we would cut back on that now that the conflict is blowing up in Israel. I could see that. I could really see us kind of lessening our involvement in Russia because I'm going to be honest with you, it seems like that war is pretty much already over. Russia has achieved what it wanted. Okay, if you look at what Putin said that they wanted before the beginning of the war, he said that they wanted land access to the Black Sea. Okay, he's achieved that. He's already achieved that. With the land that they have taken, they've already achieved that. Okay, so ultimately, that war is kind of a lost cause. Okay, so I could really see the United States lessening their influence in that situation and moving over to these other situations. Now, that doesn't mean that front could not be replaced, like Xi said, with a front in China, or excuse me, in South America with the drug cartels or something like that. Okay, this could very easily blow up into multiple different fronts. But as of right now, you already have 4. You have the one in Russia, Ukraine. You've got Israel, Palestine, obviously, that unfortunately, even though I told them not to, listen, I did my best, okay? I did my best. Last 2 videos, I said, hey, United States needs to stay out of this. You know, Israel's got it. They have the military capability to handle this. The United States does not need to get involved. If we get too heavily involved, you can fully expect the Israel-Palestine conflict to become a much bigger conflict, okay? Because the other Arabic nations, if we get too heavily involved, if the United States government, if the United States military gets too heavily involved in this war, the other Arabic nations are going to see that as the United States and Israel teaming up to genocide Muslims. They're going to see it that way. Okay? Now, Israel and the United States, may or may not be their plan. But it's not going to matter because the consensus among the Arabic nations is they're trying to genocide Arabics. Or Arabs, excuse me. That will be the consensus. That will be what they believe. It doesn't matter what we say. It doesn't matter what the truth is, even. That is what they will believe. Okay? So, that war, if we get too heavily involved, has the danger of blowing up into a much larger conflict that would be that would span the entirety of the Middle East. Okay? So, then of course you have Iran itself, which of course is a part of the Middle East, like I just said. Then you have China itself. Okay? Then you have China itself. China has wanted to retake the island of Taiwan literally since the CCP was a thing. I mean, since the CCP took over the majority of China, they've wanted to take Taiwan. And they have tried to in the past. They've tried naval invasions in the past, and they just didn't work because, naval invasions are actually really freaking hard, let alone in that part of the world where you have monsoon season and all that. it's a lot more difficult than you might think it is. Okay, I know that D-Day kind of made it look easy because United States and soldiers are freaking great, and we have the greatest military that's ever existed. Which I say that, but considering all the woke garbage that has infiltrated our military, maybe we're kind of struggling, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. Needless to say, China has wanted to retake Taiwan for a very long time, okay? Do you really think that they would not take this opportunity right now? Let's say that something happens today in the United States. Some far-left psycho or some, Hamas terrorist that got into the United States through the southern border, the cartels and literally right across the border from us. Any one of those threats could cause a major attack to happen here in the United States. And that would be just another front. You have Russia, Ukraine. You have the Middle East, Israel, Palestine. You have the front with China. And then, of course, you have the home front. You have the front that's going on right here in our backyard against the far-left psychos who are outright stating that they are supporting terrorism and are outright stating that they want to genocide Israel. And then, of course, you've got the terrorists that have come right in through the southern border. There's your four fronts right there, guys. There's your four fronts. Guys, our military, this is exactly why I've been stating that the United States does not need to get involved in this. Okay? Now, if other Arab nations get involved and, despite us not being involved, Israel is really one of our allies. Okay? I get it. Sometimes, the overwhelming majority of times that the United States has intervened in these wars, it's ended very badly. Okay? However, there was World War II and World War I where we intervened and it went very well. Ultimately, I think it really just depends on what the goal is. Okay? If we are going in to protect our allies, that's one thing. If we're going into Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria in order to nation build, that's a whole different thing. Okay? It's an entirely different reason. Soldiers don't fight for that. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, we're gonna go in and we're gonna nation build. No, soldiers don't get anything from that. But going in is saying we're gonna go in, we're gonna protect our allies that have been good to us. We've been good to them, and now we're gonna go and we're gonna do right by them. That is something that a soldier can get behind. Okay? That is something that can motivate a soldier to go and fight. Okay? Now, ultimately, if the other Arab nations decide to get involved in this war without the United States putting boots on the ground, ultimately, I feel like the United States would have to get involved. But ultimately, we need to do everything that we can to keep cooler heads. Don't be like Lindsey Graham calling for preemptive strikes like an idiot. This idiotic neocon calling for preemptive strikes. Don't be like him. We need to keep cooler heads and we need to stay out of this as much as possible. Now, we can still help Israel because Israel is our ally. It is known Israel is our ally. So we can help them. We need to refrain from giving them certain type of weapons if possible. And we need to refrain from putting American boots on the ground. Okay? That is what we need to refrain from. Because if we do, that's what's going to blow up this conflict. And it could very well blow up either way. But we need to do everything we can not to. And here is why. Joe Biden has completely obliterated the United States oil reserves. Okay? For those of you who don't know, the U.S. oil reserves is a reserve of oil that the United States has for emergencies. For example, this is literally the reasons why, this is literally one of the reasons why the oil reserve was created, specifically for a war in the Middle East, where the United States does not have as much access to oil. Okay? That's one of the reasons why this was created. However, Joe Biden came into office and he straight up just obliterated the United States' ability to produce its own oil. And then, in order to try to keep gas prices low, he started to sell off the U.S. oil reserve. So now that we have this conflict staring us straight in the face, what are we going to do if we end up in a World War III on 4 different fronts? You think we're going to have enough oil? No, we're not. No, we are not. We're not going to have enough. We're not going to have enough for a war on 4 fronts. Then you have the fact that our military has struggled to meet its recruiting standards. They have struggled mightily to meet their recruiting standards and to meet the number of recruits every single month. Every single month. The only branch of the military that hasn't struggled to continue recruiting is the Marines. That's it. Every other branch has struggled to meet their recruiting numbers and to meet their recruiting quotas, if you will. Ladies and gentlemen, our military is not ready for this. Then you have the fact that our military has been extremely wokeified, where they're instead of teaching people about how to be ready for combat and making our soldiers into the deadliest soldiers that they can be on the battlefield, they're teaching them about white rage, according to General Mark Milley. Yes, he actually said that. Teaching soldiers about white rage. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll say it once again. Our military is not ready for this. They're not. That's the reality of the situation. I don't know, man. I don't know where we go from here. Ultimately, I think that we need to be contacting our representatives and we need to saying, we do not want this. There is nothing that the American people will gain from a World War III conflict. There's nothing that we will gain from that but death and destruction and possibly nuclear annihilation. You want nukes raining down on the United States? Go ahead and support intervention in the Middle East. Go ahead and support a war with China. Go ahead. Because that's the reality of what can happen. Or even worse, an EMP attack that puts out the entire grid. The military has already run the numbers on if an EMP attack were to take out the United States power grid. They said that within the first year of the United States power grid going down, 90% of the United States population would be dead. 90%. All of these things are legitimate realities that we could be facing if we choose to get too heavily involved in this war. Contact your reps, man. Tell them this is not what we want. We need to be protesting against the wars. We need to be protesting U.S. involvement. We need to be saying no to this. Now, I get it. Israel is our ally. Okay? And if these other nations choose to get involved and choose to go after Israel and are threatening the entire existence of Israel, I get it. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. But ultimately, I'm telling you guys, we are not ready for this. We're not ready. Now, could we get ready in a short period of time? I have no idea. Considering that nobody wants to fight for a woke military, I have no idea. But contact your reps, protest, put out the word that we need to stay out of this. We need to let Israel handle it. They've got the military capability to handle it. They will be fine. Okay, I get it. It's a very terrible attack what Hamas did. And I've seen the videos. Trust me, I've seen the videos. I've seen the pictures. I've seen all of it. It's disgusting what Hamas did to those civilians. It is disgusting. And honestly, I have considered taking a side in this war. As a Christian, I'm not going to do it because I am against war. I am against the death and the destruction of civilians and innocent people. I am against that, so I'm not going to do that. But I will outright say what they did was disgusting. And there does need to be justice that comes down on Hamas over that. Whatever that takes, whatever route that takes, I don't know. I'm against war. I don't want war. But ultimately, sometimes that's just the situation that you're in. Now, Israel can handle that. Israel is more than capable of handling a war with Hamas. And ultimately, a lot of people have been saying that this very well could be the end of Gaza. That, Israeli soldiers could go in and outright just take Gaza and just annex it and be done. We're just done giving them land. We're done with this. We're done. No more half measures, basically, is what the working theory is around this conflict. I don't know, man. I don't know what we're going to see. But ultimately, we need to do everything that we can to not escalate this. Let's not be like Lindsey Graham. And if you see Lindsey Graham out in public, get in his face and tell him to shut up. Tell him to shut up and say, you are being a warmongering piece of garbage. This is disgusting what you are doing. Stop trying to escalate things. Stop trying to get us in World War III. Stop trying to destroy the United States through war. Because that's exactly what he is doing. Now, I'm not telling you to go threaten him with violence. That's not what I'm saying. But this guy needs to be confronted in public, man to man, in the street, saying, you are wrong, and you're going to stop saying this. Because you're psychotic if you think that our military is capable of handling a four-front war right now. It's not. I don't think our military has ever been capable of that. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I'm going to leave it there. Contact your reps. Tell them that you do not want war, that this needs to stop, that we need to stay out of this as much as possible. I'm going to leave it there. I'll have another video coming for you guys on Monday. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment down in the comment section, and share the show with your friends. Follow me on all the socials down in the description and hit that notification bell so that you can be notified whenever we put out new videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there, guys. Protect your families, and God bless.